Hey, welcome to another This Old Deck episode. So we're looking at another deck from way back that uses an interesting strategy to win. One thing I will say, actually, I've been misusing, I think, the word golden era to describe the decks I'm looking at. I realised after the fact, I don't know what made me think that golden era was as wide as I thought it was. I think I might have misread an article or something, but my understanding is basically the decks I'm looking at are what you might call, I suppose, 90s Magic. So decks mainly from the early days of Magic through to 1999, around thereabouts. So yeah, up to and around Urza Saga block, which was my intention, but I just misspoke the era name. And really, when you get up to that, I think you're getting into what's called the Silver Age as well. So strictly speaking, we're sort of golden age into part of silver, but definitely you could say I'm going to be focusing mainly on 90s Magic. So I just wanted to clear that up, because I realised after the fact that I was using sort of golden age in a bit of a loosey-goosey way. So yeah, this week's deck, we're looking at something or a version of a deck that is referred to as Browse Digger. So these were a style of decks that were around, and they feature, not surprisingly, a combo in it, amongst other things, or the deck is set up, and you'll see exactly how this works. Often I see that these decks around the time were referred to as trick decks, was the term that I see cropping a lot up in these books when they're talking about specific sort of tricks that are very, combo like, and would nowadays, I suppose, be called a combo deck. But what I like about this is you can feed various things into it, and it's not the way that the combo goes through the deck is quite slow in terms of getting hold of the key cards, but it does revolve around this card, SlowTV Digger, and the card Browse. But we'll look at those in a moment. Just a little bit more about the history of the deck before we go through some of the cards and then go off down various rabbit holes. So I'm reading out parts of this out of this book. It's another deck from the Deconstruction companion, which has a lot of these decks are from that book. And this particular deck was played at Worlds 96, and it actually received special notice and a write-up in the Sideboard magazine as the most unusual deck of the tournament. There's been a number of different variants of this deck, obviously from the time that Digger and Browse were both available in Standard, if we're talking about just Standard decks, but obviously you could play this in an Eternal format, although I don't know how powerful it would be against other decks. It looks like it could be a bit fragile in some respects, but yeah, they use a slow loop rather than all-out combination. So what you want to do is you're using Browse to empty your library. Okay, so down here's Browse. There we go. And then it's empty your library. And of course, as you're doing that, you're picking up, you'll notice the deck contains a lot of counter magic in various guises. There's some other parts in here as well, which we'll go into. And ultimately, you want to get a card that you want to recycle into your hand. And this is where the other part comes in. So the SlowTV Digger, and you can see here, you're putting the top card of your graveyard onto the bottom of your library. So that's how you're doing the recycle. Obviously, you can use the Browse and Digger combination multiple times. to retrieve other cards if you wanted to. So there's ways in which you could use that combination. And, you know, in cahoots, you're trying to enable a cycle. So you can enable land destruction to lock down your opponent. We'll see there's some land destruction in here. You can use it to cycle damage spells. You can use it to cycle Jester's Cap to win by library deletion. And in this deck, you can, the way this was set up, there are a number of walls added in. So you can use it with Homerid Spawning Bed and win by Camerid tokens. So let's have a look at the deck contents. So we've got 3 icy manipulators, 4 to cast. Actually, let me put this in mana value. There we go. Yeah, so we'll start off with the lower casting cost first and go through in each category. So 1 Zoran Orb, 0 to cast, 0 sacrifice a land to gain 2 life. So it's just a way in which you can gain life there if you need to. It's one of those. 1 Ivory Tower, 1 to cast at the beginning of your upkeep, gain 1 life for each card in your hand in excess of 4. So again, you're putting yourself out of reach for any other ways in which your opponent might be trying to deplete your life and win that way. Because of course with these decks, yeah, you could be in it for the long haul while you're trying to sort of browse digger through your deck. But in the process of doing that, your hands potentially can get very full. Then we've got our digger, so 2 to cast, 2 to activate, put the top card of your graveyard on the bottom of your library. So graveyard to bottom of library. 3 icy manipulators, 4 to cast, 1 tap an artifact, creature or land. So you can tap down an artifact, a creature or land. Then we have Jester's Cap, 1 of those, 4 to cast, 2 tap, sacrifice Jester's Cap to look through target player's library and remove any 3 of those cards from the game. Reshuffle that library afterwards. So you might want to cycle that. And that's the other important thing. You'll notice there's a lot of one-offs in here. And that's because with these sort of decks, you know, you don't need many copies of certain key cards. Once you grab them, they're going to get sort of recycled with Browse Digger. The problem is that's another reason why, you know, the deck makes the deck a bit fragile. Is what if your opponent has ways of taking that opposing that card, that one-off copy, which might be essential to a certain particular strategy, you know, away from you, out of the game. So in this deck, as I mentioned, there's this variant of the deck, and the nice thing with this particular combo, you can sort of stick lots of different ideas in it in terms of how to deal with and win the game, deal with your opponent and win the game. So we've got these walls, so two thunder walls, 1 2 blue with flying, blue +1/+1 until end of turn. Now remember, because it's a wall, these have defender, so they can't attack, just so we're clear on that. Except the Wall of Wonder we'll get on to in a moment. 4 Wall of Airs, 1 and 2 blue with flying, and then 2 Wall of Wonders, 2 and 2 blue, has this ability on it for 2 and 2 blue, gain +4/-4, and allow Wall of Wonder to attack this turn. So allow this card to attack this turn. Enchantments, here's our Homerid Spawning Bed. So 2 blue, 1 and 2 blue. Sacrifice a blue creature to put X Camerid tokens into play, where X is the casting cost of the sacrificed creature. Treat these tokens as 1/1 blue creatures. So with this in play, you can then sack your walls and create these Homerids, an army of Homerids. Here's our browse. So 4 of these, 2 and 2 blue, 2 2 blue. To look at the top 5 cards of your library and put one of them into your hand, remove the remaining 4 from the game. So that allows you to sort of browse through your deck, get your key cards, but remember, for this, you can only put one of them in your hand, so that means an awful lot of your deck is being removed from the game. We've got 2 control magics, 2 and 2 blue, gain control of target creature. So you can see now we're getting on to just a sort of blue control spell, which enable you to sort of keep going in combination with the life gain stuff, just long enough to, you know, get the trick in place, and to do whatever you need to do off the back of that browse and SlowTV digger trick. So we've got 2 power sinks, X and a blue, counter target spell. If its caster does not pay X, target spell's caster must draw and pay all available mana from the lands and mana pool until X is paid. He or she must also pay mana from other sources if desired. And we'll look at maybe some of these cards as well in a moment. I'm not going to look so much at the counter spells type stuff. I'm more interested in the other stuff that forms the core of the deck. 2 boomerangs, 2 blue, return target permanent to owner's hand. Enchantments on target's permanent are destroyed. 4 counter spells, counter target spell for 2 blue, 3 force of wills, 3 and 2 blue. So you can pay 1 life and remove a blue card from your hand from the game instead of paying force of will's casting cost. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to counter this loss of life counter target spell. Land base, we've got 20 islands. There's actually got 28 land in here, so we've got 20 islands. We've got 4 strip mines. Tap, add 1 colourless mana to your mana pool. Tap, sacrifice strip mine to destroy target land. So there's our land destruction. And then 4 Selenite Temple. Comes into play tapped, add blue to your mana pool, but it has this interesting ability where you can sack it and it gives you that sort of 2 blue boost. Then we have recall as well here, X and 2 blue. Sacrifice X cards from your hand and then bring X cards from your graveyard to your hand, then remove recall from the game. And there's a sideboard in here which was obviously relevant to the deck at the time, but obviously in other versions of the deck you might have a different sideboard, obviously dependent on what the meta was, you know, what the meta is, or when you're playing the card, then different cards could go in here. But you've got 3 blue elemental blasts, so counters red spells or destroys a red target, a red permanent. 3 hydra blast, counter target spell if it's red, or destroy target permanent if it's red. Magical hack, change the text of target spell or target permanent by replacing all occurrences of one basic land type with another. For example, you may change Swamp Walk to Planeswalk. Unsummon, return target creature to owner's hand. Word of Undoing, return target creature to owner's hand. Return any white enchantments you own on that creature to your hand. 3 energy fluxes. During each player's upkeep, destroy artifacts that player controls. The player may pay an additional 2 for each artifact he or she wishes to prevent energy flux from destroying. 2 deflections, target spell, which must have a single target, creates a new legal choice for your target. And then we've got 1 force of will, which was already in the deck. So we can sort of add in some extra force of wills there. Mono blue deck, as you can see there. Right. I thought I'd just quickly show you, I'll include a link to this. So this was a later version of a Browse Digger deck with some counterpose stuff in it. So we've got draw an outpost which will spit out soldier tokens. Use that to spit out soldier tokens. And you can see that there's, you know, this is a blue-white version. We've got Brainstorms, Plowshares, Abeyance, Counterspell, Disenchant, Impulse, Dissipate, Political Trickery, Gerard's Wisdom, Wrath of God, Force of Will. There's Digger. Circle of Protection Black is main decked. Browse is here, so yeah, again, Browse Digger. 22 lands this time around to a dark card, wastes, 8 islands, these the 2 aforementioned Kjoran outposts, plains, and thawing glaciers, and then obviously a different sideboard. So, you know, we're some time frame on from the original one, and so therefore the card pool that we can draw from standard is going to be slightly different. So let's look at firstly the 2 key cards, and then we'll look at the interesting things in this deck for this particular deck. Okay, so here's the Digger. It's an artifact. It's only ever been printed in Alliances. 298. Yep, 2. Put the top card of your graveyard on the bottom of your library. Yep, it's not really changed the wording. No real additional rules here. If we go into Scryfall Tagger, what do we get? Restock bottom. Graveyard order matters. So let's just look at this sort of whole restock business. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular deck. It is interesting to look at, you know, like restock effects and to muse over, to borrow a phrase from my other series, my non-Magic the Gathering stuff, to muse over like the sort of things that you might be able to do in combination with a restock card. So there's our Digger spell. We've also got this, which does an interesting thing for rebel spells. This is a rebel legend. So yeah, you got your rebel commander. And your Red Scavenger, Gurzigoist, they've got some great names here. Battlefield Scrounger, then Toonco Tracer, Conjurer's Bauble. Now, of course, remember with some of these, it gets a bit more complicated. So this one, you've got to sack it. This one is repeatable without sacking. We got Rintu Lantern, put target card in your graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. And this one here, you notice it can be any target card. This was really specific. Put the top card of your graveyard on the bottom of your library. So one thing that's interesting to do is if you've got a similar card to the one you're looking at that's part of a trick deck, as they were called back in the day, yeah, have a look around that period in standard and see, is there something else that would say similar to Browse, or there's some interesting cards? Yeah, was there a deck that worked in a similar way? Maybe there's a different card to Browse. Junk Troller, Jotun Grunt from Ice Age, which has put 2 cards in a single graveyard on the bottom of the owner's library as its cumulative upkeep. Mistfield Plains, we got it on a Plains here for a single white. Oh, there's Nissa's Chosen. Whether it would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put it on the bottom of your owner's library instead. So sort of doing it to itself. Now, did I remember? Yep. I have to check myself because I forget that I've actually done that sometimes. Right up to here, Dustmourn. Put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. Activate only as a sorcery. It's got flying. 6/4/4. Okay. So I'll leave it in everybody's capable hands. Is there a Browse Chandelier deck in around the time of Duskmourn? Don't know. So the other thing I just wanted to check is how many cards specifically reference the order. These cards carry out the order of cards in graveyard or rearrange them somehow. If any of these cards are in a player's deck, care should be taken to preserve the order of the graveyard. Well, it makes sense. And I was curious because I thought that was something generally in Magic that got avoided. Is specifically mentioning is first printing. Specifically mentioning that order. Would help if I actually got the word first printing correctly. There we go. Oh, of course, Death Spark. Yeah, that's right. Nether Shadow, Ashen Ghoul, Croven Horror. There's our SlowTV Digger. And what's the most recent one that does that? Fossil Find. So they've sort of kept it out of the modern era. And this allows you to reorder your shuffling your graveyard. That's interesting. Yeah, so you can see here, there's Corpse Dance. Top creature card from the graveyard into play. That creature is unaffected by summoning sickness. Yeah, so definitely some interesting cards here. And interesting in the reason why they're in this tag is could be slightly different, but because they're all in some way referencing the graveyard order, but the ability that does it might not be quite the same arrangement or mechanism that's being used on SlowTV Digger. So then moving on to Browse. So it did end up in the Cold Snap theme decks in this interesting format with slightly reimagined set symbol on it and in the modern card frames. There's also a version in Classic 6th edition which would have still been in the older border style but white borders, and then the Alliances version which is 14 cents. So Impulse, look at the top end cards and put one of them into your hand, not to be confused with red pseudo card draw effect. So you can see here what's going on. You're looking at the top of your library, you're putting one in your hand. With this you're removing the remaining 4 from the game. So, because what you want to ask yourself is, oops, that's interesting. I really want to do Impulse is, what I want is a repeatable effect, don't I? Really, if I'm trying to compare apples to apples. So really, it's either got to be some sort of permanent, so it needs to be an enchantment, so we've got 22 of those. Although some of these are pretty specific about the type of card. Let's put ritual do at the beginning. If you're up in step, if you control a creature, look at the top 7 cards in line. Sacrifice a creature. If you do, you may put a creature card with mana value X or less. Okay. From among those cards onto the battlefield where X is 1 plus mana value. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. Creature. Okay. So these ones are being fueled by sacking creatures. So those ones are going back into the library. So the other thing with browse as well, you're thinning your library because they're going out of the game. Other ones that do this impulse effect, where are the cards going? How does that help or hinder the particular trick? Aladdin's lamp, which is an artifact. Let's just do artifacts then. Okay. Interesting stuff here. Living phone. And then what about creatures that have a spell on them? Yeah, it's an ETB, isn't it? Yes, I think quite a few of these may have ETBs on them. My L. If I take that out, stay ascending, and then just do this. So those are the ones which specifically have exile in them. Just so you can see in it what's available. Interesting. Again, I'd probably want to do and just pull out all the sort of permanent stuff. So I could do things like, might be easier to do type sorcery minus sorcery minus type instant. I'm going to include all the starting links to this, by the way, so you can go in and do your own Scryfall shenanigans if you want to. I've got quite a few legendaries here. Interesting. Okay. Let's just go back. Something else I wanted to take a look at. Yeah, you can see here, because now with the term exile, instead of saying remove the remaining 4 from the game, it says and exile the rest. So look at the top 5 cards of your hand. Sorry. Let's look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and exile the rest. I'm trying to compress it a bit too much there, but somewhat simplified in there. Funny. Okay. So, Homorrid Spawning Bed, which is the interesting card in this particular deck. So this variant uses, if you remember when I went through and read from the book, they were saying that was what made it really interesting in the tournament, was this Homorrid Spawning Bed in combination with the walls. There is a Justice Cap in here, which we'll get onto in a moment, because some of the decks I think I've said that use this particular trick used Jester's Cap as well, so that's still in the deck. But the Homerid Spawning Bed, 2 blues, enchantment, 1/2 blue, sacrifice a blue creature, create X, 1/1 blue, Cameroid creature tokens, where X is the sacrificed creature's mana value. So you can see it's there, just errata text has simplified that. Only ever printed in Fallen Empires, well, apart, in paper, should I say. That's the online version. Yeah, 21 cents. Oh, it looks like a fun card to play around with, doesn't it? What do you reckon? So yeah, repeatable token generator, sacrifice outlet creature, unprinted token. Yeah, we've definitely been down that rabbit hole before. Mana value matters. So in terms of repeatable token generators, yeah, there's 1,196 cards that allow you to generate repeatable tokens. So it's fairly, it's a thing that you can do. And 560 cards that have some relationship to mana values in some way. So if you were looking for, just, I don't know, an enchantment that does a similar thing, there's quite a number that you could play around with. There we go. Tombstone Stairwell. You can get some interesting stuff with that. Squirrel Farm. Squirrel Nest. So you probably notice there might be a number of cards here that over the years have been used in certain certain trick decks to, generate a surplus amount of tokens, or a massive amount of tokens, should I say. Yeah, so that's definitely an interesting rabbit hole to go down, is enchantments that have some way that you can repeatably spit out tokens. And in actual fact, I don't know if I mentioned it at the start, but this is in the chapter on Misograph decks. So yeah, that was all about, spitting out Wild Pegasus tokens. So yeah. So in some ways, this might be, because of the particular nature of this deck, particular version, and that might be another way of looking at it is, okay, what's the most effective way I can get loads and loads and loads of tokens into play by synergizing with something. Similar to Homerid Spawning Bed. Only appearing in paper in Fallen Empires. So yeah, Jester's Cap. This is a really interesting card in the way it's been used in the deck, because ironically it's being used in a theme deck, not theme deck, a trick deck or combo deck. You can use it in this scenario for library depletion if you wanted to, But this card is, you know, a card for dealing with combo decks, like removing the combo from decks. So I think that's really interesting, removing the tricks from decks. As long as there are 3 or more cards in that library, you must find 3 cards and exile them. If there are fewer than 3 cards in the opponent's library, you exile all of them. Yep. Been reprinted a few times. Be interesting to see if in those Dominaria remastered packs I managed to find one of these. It's not an expensive card, but you know, it's nice to just not in this form anyway. It's pretty cheap. The original is $7.71 now. I can't remember if I have one of these or not. Actually, possibly. Yeah, not sure. Because didn't it also appear on? I think why I get confused sometimes is some of these like appear on the booster packs themselves, so it always feels like you pulled one for, you know, bizarrely. But yeah, that could be it. 9th edition version is pretty scary. So what this is going to be? It's an egg. Artifacts that have to be sacrificed to do something, of which there are 166 of those. Exile cards from a library. They're just gone. So yeah, let's have a look at extraction stuff, shall we? Seeing as this is the way that this is being used. Okay. Oh, look at these. There's a root water thief. Oh, of course, mirror incubator. Turns them into mere tokens. That's funny. And of course here they're, of course specifically, some of these are going to be searching your library. We really want something that does target player's library. So you want to target our opponent. Or target our opponent, I suppose. Target player's library is interesting. And it would be nice if that was... Oh, I didn't know you do sack it, don't you? So, and it works in the deck we're using it in because we can use the trick to get it back. Because we can get from our graveyard back to our library, draw it again. But, yeah, some interesting variants here. Sealed Fate. Okay, so these 3 walls. See if there's anything particularly special about them. I just think they probably were convenient for the deck, maybe. So this call falls into the category of Shade Pump. Effects that give an arbitrary amount of +1/+1 until end of turn. Okay. Of which there are 165 of those. Oh, there's Chromat. I do like a Chromat. It's a very agreeable card. Oh look, we've got a Nephilim. I misread that. I knew it actually said, ultimately said Genji of the Fens. For some reason, I think I'm listening to too many podcasts about Game of Thrones. I was thinking it said Gendry of the Fens. Funny. Yeah, so the drawback is that, well, it's a wall. And yeah, I wonder if that's got a particular name. Paying to make the wall capable of attacking does not override the normal rule that a creature may not attack unless it begun your... Oh, I see, yeah. So the same. Well, it doesn't override summoning sickness. Okay, yeah, so flow stone, but just bigger. Okay. So yeah, that flowstone effect, although yeah, it's quite a broad set. I wonder if there's any. So Auguspree, just yeah. So that's you're Auguspreeing yourself basically, or Auguspreeing, yeah, the creature. That's quite amusing. Oh, that's scalable. Okay. And notice here as well, yeah, so, yeah, we got armor. This would be what pre-equipment it days. Target creature gets -1/-X until end of turn. So, I'm surprised it doesn't say like pseudo equipment. I thought that was a tag, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. It should be a tag, I think, because there are some cards in Magic which exist before. Yeah, see, there's another one, Flowstone Armor. And also, I mean, thinking about it, is that a more flexible way of doing equipment than the way it's done? Oh, there we go. See, pseudo equipment. Yeah. I thought so. Yeah, lots of flowstone stuff, not surprising. Yeah. So what are the ones that specifically reference fours? Oh, what did I do there? Am I getting muddled up here? Yeah. O-tag. There we go. Oh, Calm Silver Golem does the reverse. Huh. Oh, that's because it's got Megamorph 4 on it. Okay. So we've got a selective one here, Bloodlust. Yeah, I had a feeling that was from Return to Ravnica. Just couldn't remember. Yeah, I love these, you know, modal creature spells like this. I think these are cool. It's Etherling. I don't think I didn't specifically mention here, but this is a reprint. There's a nice full version of this, slightly different artwork though, which is pretty cool. Yeah, Wall of Air has been reprinted quite a number of times. Nice foil edition of that, with that artwork. And yeah, was kicking around in 10th edition. That's probably where I remember it from. Yeah, look at that. I think that's pretty cool. on the wall only in Ice Age. Excellent. So one thing I wanted to do, because I didn't really do this, is just have a look for the two key cards. I was just curious, if I go into Cube Cobra, what do we see? It's often drafted with Icy Manipulator. There's Power Sync. I wanted to take a look at Power Sync as well, actually, because that was in the deck, and that was one where I just felt, yeah, let's look at Power Sync. So let me do that for the moment. Okay, come back to that. Yeah, there's Browse, look. So of course this is another great way to look for interesting synergies. So in addition to SlowTV Digger, we also have SlowTV Excavations. Look at the top card of your library. You may put that card on the bottom of your library. So that one's the graveyard. That one fiddles around with the library. So graveyard back to library, library back to library. Oh yeah, this is lovely artwork here. Love that artwork. Okay, just down a side, side path. I just did want to look at Power Sync on Scryfall, because I know it's been reprinted quite a few times. Okay, yeah, here we go. So you notice something else I did in the deck. I deliberately picked the version of the card that was most recent. I could have picked some black border cards. I was just curious as to the pricing of the deck if I did that. $632. Yeah. Would have been a lot more expensive for some of these if I put the black border cards in. But yeah, I was just curious. I mean, what's bumping up the price on this? Obviously, the recall, multiple copies of Strip Mine, and then, yeah, Force of Will, not surprisingly. Yeah, really pumping that up. Yeah. Yeah, so. But again, with this deck, I really like the idea of it, because you can play around with the counterspell stuff in there as well. Yeah, I think. Yeah, look at all the different Power Sync artworks over the years. That's pretty interesting. There's no way that would have ever been available in full, would it? That would have been pretty cool in full, I reckon. Yeah, you just don't see. You can get one from the list. Can someone answer the question for me, actually? Is it possible, do they do list cards in foil if they crop up in a deck? Is there any probability, how, albeit very, very, very small, that you could get a card that one is from the list, obviously, and then two is a full version of that? I don't know enough about, how the list ends up. I know it ends up in certain sets as a possibility, but I'm not sure whether that possibility is having a full version of it or not. As a saga, we're still pre-foil here, aren't we? I think. Don't think that's possible. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah, definitely certain artwork that you feel need reprinting, just for the possibility of having the card in foil, I think would be really nice. And the other thing I wanted to look at, I should have fixed this. So we got power sync. Where are we? I'm looking for browse, that was it. Yeah, the browse, and just having a look at Cube Cobra. Yeah, often drafted with, there's IC Manipulator again. Yep, there's Digger, Power Sync. And there's the synergistic cards, wow. Look at all those old cards. Oh, Skeleton Ship. Oh my word. Like I said, I'll include all the links here in the description, so if there's various side quests you want to go down, you can. Lucky I didn't start off with Cube Cobra actually in some ways, because I might have lost my direction and just gone off down some weird side quest, which may not have been a bad thing, but yeah. I don't know what it's about this card. Yeah. Something about the artwork on that, I really drawn to it. Okay, the final thing I want to do, what was it? Actually, no, yeah, I've got to do it here, but I did want to see on this, I did want to have a quick look at EDH Rec ranking, if you're curious. This also has a combo feature in as well, which I've never really sort of gone down that avenue, but yeah. So some interesting combos there. Power sync. And then back to this one. 50 decks. Yeah, this is the problem with this card. Of course, it's exiling stuff. So as a way of looking through things. Yeah, it works in that deck. Just the way it's utilised and for the time, but yeah, not something you don't necessarily go for. But I think definitely this is a card that's interesting to look at. Look at other combos. Yeah, similar cards. Have a little bit of a play around with that. It's not expensive either. Nice artwork. Of course, yeah, Grenzo. Put the bottom card of your library into your graveyard, so it's going the other way. That's funny. Yeah, Grenzo with Soul Devi Digger. So this one's putting the top card of your graveyard on the bottom of your library, and this one's putting the bottom of your library into your graveyard. Okay. Amusing. And on that very happy note, that's made me smile actually, quite a bit. I completely forgot about that. That's why I love doing these without any particular plan, because it's amazing what you can come up with. So yeah, I'll include all the links. Interesting deck, interesting trick. Thanks for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.